You know, usually when we talk about the national economy, or specifically the housing market, there's this ingrained expectation of uniformity.
Right, like it's all just one giant macroeconomic weather system.
Exactly. You turn on the news, the anchor points to a map and says, like, national home prices are cooling. And the assumption is that a light drizzle of price drops is just, falling on everyone, everywhere, all at once.
I mean, it's comforting to think there's a single predictable temperature out there. We kind of rely on those broad strokes because they make a chaotic world feel legible.
For sure.
But the moment you actually test that theory on the ground, the entire narrative just falls apart.
Which is exactly why we are here. Welcome to the deep dive. We know you tune in because you want to understand the hidden mechanics of where the 2026 economy is actually shifting well before it hits the mainstream headlines.
Yeah, we are definitely not looking at national averages today.
Not at all. Today, we're stepping into a hyper-local economic microclimate that is honestly, it's defying gravity.
It really is. We're pulling from a brilliant, highly detailed market archive and real estate profile put together by Cara. She's a top luxury agent based in the Indianapolis area.
Right.
And the absolute epicenter of our analysis today is this ultra-exclusive waterfront enclave called Admirals Bay.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because setting our mission for today, we aren't just taking a virtual tour of a wealthy zip code.
No, definitely not.
We are dissecting how these extreme micro markets actively rebel against national trends. We're getting into the mechanics of the shadow market.
The off-market stuff, yeah?
Exactly, how massive amounts of real estate are trading hands completely off the grid, and we're breaking down the specific, honestly sometimes surprising, commercial drivers injecting a fire hose of capital into local pockets.
If you want to understand how and why wealth is insulating itself in 2026, Admirals Bay is like the perfect laboratory for it.
So let's start with the physical product, because to understand the economics, you have to understand the geography first. Admirals Bay sits on the Indianapolis side of the Geist Reservoir.
And just to clarify for everyone, this isn't some neighborhood pond. It's a 1,900-acre lake.
Right. It's massive. But Admirals Bay itself is incredibly secluded. It's this maturely wooded enclave where the ultimate prize is what the real estate data literally calls dock-at-your-door living.
Private coves, immediate deep water access. It's geographic scarcity by definition.
Yeah, you can't just build more of it.
Exactly. You cannot manufacture more historic, maturely wooded coastline on a fully developed reservoir. And that physical limitation is just slamming headfirst into unprecedented demand.
Which brings us to the numbers.
Yeah, looking at Condé's market archive for early 2026, the inventory numbers are staggering. In this entire enclave, there are only about 3 active listings.
Wait, hold on. 3? In the entire neighborhood?
Just 3.
That's not a market. That's like a hostage situation. It's a high-stakes game of musical chairs, where the chairs are multi-million-dollar estates and the music stopped like a long time ago.
That is a very accurate way to put it.
But let me challenge something here, because the data mentions the median list price in Admirals Bay is hovering around $600,000.
Right.
Which, yes, is a premium over the broader Geist area, but wait. If there are literally 3 houses available, the concept of a median price is almost useless, isn't it?
Completely useless.
Like one massive estate hitting the market completely skews that metric.
You're spot on. In a sample size that microscopic, the median is just a mathematical technicality.
So what's the actual reality?
The reality on the ground is far more aggressive. If you want a true waterfront estate in Admirals Bay, one of those properties with a deeded private dock on a serene cove, those are starting well over $800,000 and pushing rapidly into the multi-millions.
Wow. Okay, so the pricing is stratospheric, the inventory is basically zero. But I want to dig into the why. What are these buyers actually fighting over?
It's more than just the house.
Right, because at a certain wealth threshold, you aren't just paying for the drywall or the square footage or even the floating dock.
No, you're not. What's fascinating here is that buyers at this tier are purchasing a highly curated, heavily insulated ecosystem.
They're buying a lifestyle?
Exactly. They are buying a localized reality that guarantees specific outcomes for their families. Let's look at the infrastructure. Admirals Bay feeds into the Hamilton Southeastern schools.
Which is a huge draw.
Huge. The data specifically highlights that this district holds an A+ niche rating, which is elite for Indiana, but more importantly, It has phenomenal marks in STEM.
And I'm guessing that STEM focus isn't just a random coincidence given the type of buyers flooding into the region, which we'll definitely get to later.
Oh, absolutely not a coincidence.
Yeah.
And if public school isn't their route, they are minutes away from elite private institutions like Cathedral High School and Park Tudor.
So the educational pipeline is completely locked down.
Lockdown. Then you layer in the physical security and recreation. The Geist Harbours Property Owners Association provides this private layer of amenity.
Like the community pools, exclusive trails, the clubhouse, all that.
Right. And you have immediate access to Flat Fork Creek Park for mountain biking and hiking.
And you really can't ignore the lifestyle loop either. The local ecosystem is fully fleshed out. I mean, you can take your boat right up to Wolfie's Grill on the reservoir for their famous sirloin steak tacos.
Which is such a specific, amazing perk.
It really is. You've got Daniel's Vineyard for wine tastings, the Ale Emporium for craft brews, and if you need high-end retail, you're what, a 10 to 20-minute drive from the Fashion Mall at Keystone?
Yeah, for Gucci, Louis Vuitton, plus all the high-end dining in neighboring Carmel and Fishers.
So it's the ultimate time preservation strategy. You have authentic, quiet, lake lifelike sunrise paddleboarding from your backyard, but with zero compromise on luxury retail or elite education.
It's all within a 15-minute radius.
But if this ecosystem is as perfect as it sounds, and there are literally only 3 homes publicly listed, I mean, the math just doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't.
How is anyone actually penetrating this neighborhood? Where is the real inventory?
That is the pivotal question.
Yeah.
And it forces us to transition from what is being sold to how the real business is actually being conducted.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting. Because Cara isn't just listed as a standard real estate agent in this archive.
Far from it.
The document repeatedly emphasizes her role as an off-market specialist. It states outright that the most desirable Cove front estates in Admirals Bay move quietly through private networks,
They never even touch the public MLS.
which fundamentally alters the mechanics of homeownership in these brackets. I mean, it's functioning a lot like dark pools in institutional stock trading.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right, because billionaires don't trade millions of shares of Apple on a public app. It would instantly tip off their competitors or crash the price. They trade in private dark pools. It sounds like Admirals Bay is essentially a real estate dark pool.
That is exactly what it is.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here. If I'm a buyer and I have, let's say, $3 million in liquid cash, why can't I just bully my way into the market? Why do I need an off-market broker?
Because in a hyper-tight, severely seller-favorable market, your $3 million doesn't make you special.
Ouch.
It's true. Everyone trying to get into Admirals Bay has capital. What the seller actually values, the ultimate premium commodity, is privacy.
Meaning they just don't want a digital footprint.
Precisely. To understand the off-market mechanism, you have to really look at the psychology of a high-net-worth seller. They absolutely loathe the public listing process.
I can imagine.
They don't want their floor plans, their security camera placements, and their interior artwork blasted across the internet for anyone to see.
They don't want their neighbors tracking how many days their house has been sitting or gossiping about a $50,000 price drop.
Exactly. They want to avoid the digital looky-loos.
People just scrolling Zillow for entertainment on their lunch break.
We all do it, but these sellers hate it. So they utilize a specialist like Conde. She leverages her credentials as a certified negotiation expert and a luxury home marketing specialist to execute these whisper listings.
Whisper listing,
Right.
so no for sale sign in the yard.
No sign. No public open house. It is a highly sophisticated white glove matching process. She uses advanced digital targeting and heavily vetted private networks to quietly connect a seller who demands absolute confidentiality with a pre-qualified buyer who is just desperate for inventory.
Which means if you are just a regular buyer relying on standard public websites, you are essentially looking at the scraps.
Pretty much.
You're seeing the picked-over inventory, while the prime waterfront estates are trading hands behind closed doors. But how does that even work practically?
What do you mean?
Well, if a house never hits the open market, how do you even establish the value? How does an appraisal work if there are no public comps?
Ah, right. Well, in many of these ultra-high-end off-market deals, traditional appraisals take a back seat.
Really?
Yeah. When you have cash-rich buyers competing in a shadow market, the value is simply what the buyer is willing to pay to secure the asset and bypass the competition.
So they don't care about the appraisal.
Not really. The traditional metrics of price per square foot become completely secondary to the value of just securing entry into the Admirals Bay ecosystem.
It really is a velvet rope, but the rope is invisible. If you don't know the bouncer, you don't even know the club exists.
That's the reality of it.
Okay, so we've established the hyperscarce microclimate and the shadow market dictating the terms, but nothing exists in a vacuum. We have to zoom out and look at the macro forces propping this all up.
Yes, because the 2026 data for this region presents a massive economic contradiction.
It really does.
Yeah.
Look at the national narrative right now. For the first time in years, national home prices have actually dropped.
Right, a broad macroeconomic cooling.
But inside Condé's market archive, central Indiana is positioned as this untouchable sweet spot. The local market isn't just holding steady, it's projected to shatter the National Association of Realtors' 14% forecast.
That's wild.
So what does this all mean? How can a local market skyrocket while the National Foundation is cracking?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're looking at a regional economy that has successfully decoupled from national trend.
Decoupled entirely.
Exactly. And it's driven by two specific catalysts. First, a shift in monetary policy acting as a psychological trigger, and second, an unprecedented tsunami of commercial development.
Let's start with the monetary side.
Okay, so the data credits a recent 0.25% interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve, with basically unlocking the 2026 Indianapolis housing market.
But wait, let me stop you there. We just spent 10 minutes talking about ultra-wealthy buyers paying millions in cash for off-market shadow inventory.
Yeah.
Why on earth does a cash buyer care about a tiny quarter-point rate cut from the Fed? They aren't going to a local bank to scrape together a 30-year conventional mortgage.
That is a crucial distinction, and you're absolutely right. The direct financial impact of that rate cut on a cash buyer is practically zero.
So why does it matter?
We have to look at the psychological mechanics of the broader market. When the Fed cuts rates, even slightly, it signals a shift in the macroeconomic winds. It creates liquidity in the adjacent markets.
Ah, I see.
The people who do need mortgages suddenly start buying the $500,000 homes, and that allows those sellers to upgrade to the $800,000 homes.
Which greases the wheels of the entire regional ecosystem.
Exactly. It creates a velocity of capital that trickles all the way up to the luxury tier.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a sentiment shift. But sentiment alone doesn't drive a market to beat national forecasts by double digits. That requires hard physical capital.
Which brings us to the commercial influx. Central Indiana isn't just building a few new strip malls. It is experiencing a paradigm-shifting corporate gold rush right now.
Yeah, the archive highlights several massive drivers, but the crown jewel is obviously the arrival of Cadillac's Formula One headquarters in Fishers.
That detail is just huge.
It blew my mind. Formula One is a multi-billion-dollar, globally dominant industry, and they're dropping a headquarters right into the Indianapolis suburbs.
And crucially, Fishers is a mere 10 to 20-minute commute from Admirals Bay. Think about the demographic that a global F1 hub brings with it.
It's not just regular jobs.
No, you're importing an entire strata of international executives, specialized high-tech engineers, and top-tier corporate leadership.
And suddenly the demand for those A-plus rated STEM schools in Hamilton Southeastern makes perfect sense.
Exactly. You have hundreds of highly compensated, tech-focused professionals relocating their families. They need elite education, they demand extreme privacy, and they have the capital to secure waterfront luxury.
But it's not just F1, right?
Not at all. The archive tracks massive diversified commercial growth across the whole region. You have the Pickler, which is this sprawling new facility capitalizing on the sports recreation boom in Westfield.
Right.
You have an explosive industrial warehouse and logistics boom over in Plainfield, driven by strategic post-supply chain investments.
And there's a surge in senior living developments, early education real estate.
It's an all-fronts expansion. Plainfield, Whitestown, Brownsburg, Avon, all these surrounding suburbs are seeing this massive commercial glow up.
This is the mechanism of decoupling. When you inject that volume of commercial capital into a defined region, you create a localized wealth funnel.
That's exactly what it is.
The logistics CEOs from Plainfield, the engineering directors from the F1 HQ in Fishers, the executives running the medical and recreation expansions in Westfield, they are all funneling their newly localized wealth toward the exact same highly restricted residential bottlenecks.
Like the 3 available homes in Admirals Bay.
Precisely. This raises such an important question about how we fundamentally misunderstand real estate data.
How so?
We are conditioned to view local housing prices as a reflection of the median wage of the surrounding community, like the average guy living in town.
Right, which used to be true.
But in a hypercharged micromarket like this, the housing prices aren't tethered to local wages at all anymore. They're a reflection of corporate executive compensation packages and global industrial investment.
It's a completely insulated economy, playing by its own rules.
Which really brings us to the core of why this deep dive matters for you, the listener. Whether you're an investor trying to spot the next boomtown, or someone prepping to navigate your own local housing market, or just fascinated by the sheer psychology of wealth, the primary takeaway here is that the housing market is basically a myth.
A complete fabrication.
Right.
There is no single national housing market. There are thousands of highly localized, hyper-specific micro-markets, each reacting to their own unique gravitational pulls.
And what Cara Market Archive proves is that if you're only looking at public data, if you're only checking the MLS, watching the national news, and looking at public inventory, you are trying to navigate a complex terrain using a map that intentionally hides the most important landmarks.
Yeah, the real market, the one dictating the highest values and moving the most significant capital, is functioning quietly, entirely off the grid.
The rules of supply and demand are quite literally being rewritten behind closed doors via private networks and non-disclosure agreements.
It's wild to think about.
It is. Which leaves us with a lingering thought today. We are watching real estate agents increasingly adopt the tactics of institutional finance, utilizing highly sophisticated digital networks to curate shadow markets and bypass the public MLS entirely.
Yeah.
If this trend continues to accelerate, are we moving toward a future where the most valuable real estate data in the country is permanently hidden from the public eye?
It certainly looks that way.
And if the best homes and the true market values are obscured behind a digital velvet rope, how does that change the fundamental transparency of the American dream of homeownership? We started by talking about the economy as a national weather system. But it turns out, if you really want to know which way the wind is blowing, you can't just watch the local news. You have to know someone who already has a key to the private dock.